Yes. What's happening, everybody? It is Wednesday night. It is 10 o'clock Central. Well, it's 10:09 Central Time. I'm a little bit late, but it's time for Ask Weezy. That's when I bring out all my stats, when I bring out everything that I have for you guys so that I can answer any questions that you might have about any of the fighters or the fights on the UFC 295 card so that we can make some money gambling on this sport, however it might be. Money lines, prop bets, over-under bets, prize picks, underdog. I've got all the data for all of these props. So join me live in the chat and ask me any questions you have about these fights. And we can find ways to stack cash tickets like flapjacks using the data as our guide in order to make more educated decisions in the long run. So I hope you'll come along with me, and I hope you'll flood that chat with questions for me today about any questions that you have, because I've got a whole bunch of stuff here. I've got my prop template so we can talk about over-under bets in any of these fights. I've got the advanced stats here, so that we can talk about the matchup stats about any of these fights. I've got my significant strikes template here, which has a crazy amount of information if you're an underdog fantasy or if you're a prize picks fantasy player. We can talk about some of the spots that I already like. I've got a 3-leg prize picks play already ready to go for this week that I've put in for myself. And I saw that Underdog Fantasy just got their numbers out. So I started putting them into my little template here. And we could talk about where to find ways, because sometimes there's some difference in these significant strike props between sites. And we can find ways to exploit that as well. I've got significant strike projections for each fighter here. I've got divisional benchmarks. I've got fighters, how many times they've went over or less than a certain amount of significant strikes. So look, it's all here, you guys. Let me help you guys make some money betting on these fights by answering any questions that are burning a hole in you right now and asking like, Christ, if I only knew the answer to this question, I could lay a massive bet and be sure that it was going to cash. Well, here I am, folks. I got the answers, the data-driven answers, that is, because there are no right answers about how to cap fights. Everybody's going to have different opinions. People see different things in the tape. People have different definitions of what value is. But what's not mistakable is the actual data. And we can talk about that till the cows come home right here on Ask Weezy. Now, that would be the point where if I had like some really cool music and like an intro, where it would be like right here on Ask Weezy. And then it's like a guitar solo starts and then you got like a bunch of like people getting knocked out and people like standing up and cheering when their bets cash. And then we come back after like a 30-second bump. And then I'm here to answer your questions. But unfortunately, the production value of my work here is not great. We're working on that. We are working on it, but the production value not quite there yet. But hopefully the data analysis always will be for you guys. What's going on with these guys in the chat here? We got my guy Mushroom is in the room saying, oi, yes, what's up, Unc? 3 more sleeps until UFC 295, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night. Those are the 3 sleeps. Saturday, we wake up. We might have to take a nap before those fights start because it is a pay-per-view card. It'll be starting later. But, man, I'm looking forward to it, Mushroom. And I know that you've been making some money on these fights. You've been doubling your money pretty much every damn week. And I'm hoping to do the same with my money this week, my man. Let me know if you have any questions about these fights. We got Grateful Dude in the room saying, is Dern by decision at plus 350 worth the sweat? Well, right now, that fight, let's look at the prop template and see where we have. Fight doesn't go to decision for this one. So they got the fight going at plus 160, so about 38% of the time. And if this fight goes to decision, let's say they each have a half chance to win, right? Then that would put them each at about a 19% implied probability. 19% implied probability, something like plus 400, plus 410 maybe. So I don't know, man. Plus 350. I don't necessarily think it's worth the sweat because like even the fights that she did win by decision, like if you had a Dern by decision ticket in the Hill fight, you were holding your breath for about 12 minutes of that fight. She had Hill in so many bad spots. Hill had such good submission defense. Same thing with the Marina Rodriguez fight. Same thing with the Tisha Torres fight. You'd be holding your breath, but you would have been cashing those tickets. But here's the thing, Grateful Dude, is that Jessica Andrade has lost 10 UFC fights, and she's been finished in 8 of them. 8. So she's not somebody right now that I'm willing to say I'm going to trust her durability. Even though we've seen, and think about how many bad spots Dern has had these last 3 girls in. Think of how close she came to finishing Yan Xiaonan a couple of times when she did get her to the ground. Think about how close she was to finishing Marina Rodriguez 2 different times. Tisha Torres once. Angela Hill like 6 different times in that fight. She had Angie in so many bad spots. So, yeah, I don't think it's worth the sweat, Grateful Dude. I'm going to stay away from that one personally. We got Presidente Pedro in the room saying, "Oi, what is up, Pedro? Let me know if you have any questions today." We got Jake C in the room saying, "Oi," and we've got Yes Freak in the room saying Scottsdale, Arizona is watching. Weezy, oi, Scottsdale, man, Camelback Mountain over there. I told you guys about Camelback Mountain already. Not a good time there for me as a kid. D-Gen for life in the room saying, "Oi, what is happening, D-Gen?" Juicy Q in the room saying, "Happy hump day, y'all." Getting through this week has been like trying to watch Almeida tap out the Black Beast. Yeah, if you guys didn't see it, I posted a clip, and you won't be able to hear it, but I will show you on my Twitter where it is. Twitter. All right, and I posted this clip here, and I'm saying, what if, let's just say, Gilton knows how the gambling markets work. Let's say Gilton goes out there and knows that he can take this guy down whenever he wants to. And if I get the same amount of money, whether I submit him in the first round or whether it goes the full 5 rounds, but I could sit on top of this guy for 25 minutes because I'm that good. I can take him down whenever I want. And plus 1,800 was the fight goes to decision line. So if Gilton knows that and he knows that he could take some money on the side through some friends, put it on fight goes to decision or Gilton by decision, knowing that he's never going to try to finish the fight over 25 minutes, knowing that the line is that blown out. Um, it creates temptation, for these guys because you're telling somebody like, hey, if you finish this guy, people think that's a 50% chance of that happening in the first round. But if you actually just take your time and take this guy down and don't do much and just ride it out, plus 1,800 for fight goes to decision, you know, if you tell one of these fighters who doesn't make a lot of money fighting, hey, I gotta wait for you to take money over 25 minutes and multiply it by 18. I think a lot of them would say, I'm listening. I'm listening. So yeah, I posted this. This is from last week's Just the Tip. So 5 days before the fight took place, I said, when you open up a fight doesn't go to decision line at minus 3,000, you know, you're playing with fire because minus 3,000 is a 97% implied probability. But the implied probability of if somebody goes and tells Jailton, hey, if you win this fight by decision, we can make a pile of money. A pile of money. That's when you start to see unlikely results like this. Like I say, DraftKings opened up the fight doesn't go to decision for Almeida versus Lewis at minus 10,000. If we go to my prop template where we can easily take any line minus 10,000 is a 99.01% implied probability, you know? But the implied probability that Jailton Almeida could win the fight by decision if he knew he could make 18 times his money doing it with the skill set that he has, turns out it's probably a lot lower than that, you know? It's probably, you know, he can make that happen, you know, 40% of the time, 50% of the time, but it would be worth it. It would absolutely be worth it. So, yeah, that was a very interesting main event. And yeah, I am a conspiracy theorist sometimes, and I believe that there's probably that was probably a work. It was a work where Jailton knew that, hey, I can take this guy for the full 25, and nobody thinks that's going to happen, and I can profit from it. Kid Kick is in the room saying, "Oi!" And we got Rem Dog saying that grateful dude. I was kind of wondering the same. Would play it if it wasn't so dependent on Andrade not quitting though. And yeah, that's the thing, right? Is he going to quit? You know, or is she going to quit? And she's looked like she's been looking for ways out lately, and she's, you know, made a lot of money doing this. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. My money's getting nowhere near that fight because I think it's too narrative driven for me to want to, you know, I can't just bet based on their previous in cage performances, in my opinion. Let's see. Getting information from Uncle Weezy feels like getting insider trading tips from a politician. It should be illegal. Yeah, I wish it were that. I mean, because like, I'm not going to lie to you. If you have $10,000 and you need to double that money, and you got your Uncle Weezy telling you to hit a prop, or you got Senator so-and-so telling you that they've got a hot stock tip for you, take the senator's hot stock tip. Those guys know everything that's going to happen. They make the laws that these guys operate under, and they create the loopholes for these companies. So it's not quite that good. But when we have all this data, we can make decisions in the markets, not as good as the people with inside information, of course, but we can make some of the most educated, data-driven decisions as possible with everything that we have here. Appreciate you, Yippee Kai. Hey, that is a great shout out, man. We've got Charles Smith saying, shout out to my friend Alex Ramirez. Charles Smith saying, what's up to the general? I'm going to say what's up to the general, too. We got Broke D-Gen in the room saying, last week a guy said he was max betting the under on Jailton versus Black Beast. Yeah, I think a lot of people would have max bet that. I think a lot of people were just parlaying that up with everything to just get a little bit more juice on their bets. And yeah, it didn't work out for them, unfortunately. And I feel for those people because I feel like they had the right stylistic read. I feel like Jailton Almeida could have finished that fight whenever he wanted to. But it looked to me like he was trying to make it go 25 minutes on purpose. That's what it looked like to me. I don't think anybody's really going to say, you know, convince me otherwise either, you know, because that was just too blatant. I don't see how he doesn't finish that guy. You know, he was in mount 15 seconds into every round, you know, and it's not like Lewis was throwing up triangles and shit. I mean, come on. He could have finished him whenever he wanted. He didn't try. He tried to take him down, and then he laid on top of him. And we got Antonio Esparza is in the room. He's saying, oi, what's up, Unc? Sorry I haven't been here the last couple streams. Are you doing good, Unc? I'm doing good, man. We got the year coming to an end here very shortly. Daylight savings time is kicked in, so it starts getting dark at like 4:30 p.m. here in Chicago. Definitely sucks. But I am happy that we are in this stretch of the UFC schedule right now where things slow down a little bit. 3 weeks on, 1 week off, 3 weeks on, 1 week off, 3 weeks on, 1 week off, or that last 3 weeks on, then we're going to have 4 weeks off, and then we're going to pick it back up in mid-January. So things are good, man. Happy to be here. Always ready to answer your questions and do this content for you guys for free on YouTube, and I appreciate you guys showing up. Hit that thumbs up. Hit that subscribe if you haven't already. All right, we got Underlying Dream is in the room saying, oi, really love that Gracie Jim Sabatini fights out of Philly, but I know Lopez is young, solid fighter. Who you liking in that one? My pick is Pat Sabatini by decision. Um, I liked the finish only prop at close to even money on Diego Lopez there, but I think it's a very high level fight. Um, the striking I think is definitely in favor of Lopez, and I think that both guys are extremely dangerous on the ground. Obviously, Sabatini is a high level black belt who has a D1 college wrestling background, and obviously Diego Lopez is like a jiu-jitsu coach to a lot of people. The guy is a very high level Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt, and he's about as aggressive as it gets. I heard somebody say, I think it was Brandon Oliva said this week that, like he's kind of got Diego Lopez doesn't, I mean, he's a high level black belt, but he's got purple belt jujitsu where he's just chaining submissions together, while the black belts will worry more about control and being, not taking too many risks to go for submissions that could wind up getting them out of position, while Lopez, he'll just flop to his back and just chain submissions together really aggressively. And that's something that he's gonna have to deal with. But Pat Sabatini's a high level black belt, so I think that Pat should be able to take him down whenever he wants. And if he can stay safe on top and avoid those submission and sweep attempts from Lopez, which I think he can, then I think that he can cruise to a decision here by being on top and wearing on Diego Lopez, very much the same way that Joe Anderson Brito did. So I do like Sabatini to win the fight, but I think that you could sprinkle a little bit of Lopez by KO, Lopez inside the distance, because I could see Sabatini has, not been the chinny, his chin is not ironclad. He's been dropped by a few guys that you don't usually see dropping other people. So Jamal Emmers dropped him. Damon Jackson kicked him in the face and finished him shortly thereafter. So yeah, I don't know if how long Sabatini wants to be on the feet here, and his fights only take place at distance striking range on aggregate 20% of his UFC cage time. So this guy is a master at getting fights to the ground and winning minutes there, and I expect that's the route that he's going to take in this fight. We got JJack77 saying, "What's up, Weezy? What you think about an Aspinall sub, Dern sub, and Lopez sub parlay? Getting my Clint on. Yeah, they got a submission special there. I think that they're all very good chances of happening because Aspinall does not want to be standing up, especially early with Sergey Pavlovich. Now, if he gets Sergey really tired, I think he'll be able to, be faster than him at range and be the better boxer. But early in fights, Pavlovich chucking those uppercuts, and he's fairly light on his feet for a dude that's built like a refrigerator. So I think that, Aspinall early in the fight, he's going to be trying to take this guy down. And even if he's unsuccessful doing that, he's going to make Pavlovich work and he's going to slow him down and wear on him while trying to get him down. So I think that this could be a good spot for Aspinall to get an early knockout, ground and pound, or the submission. Real Fight Picks is saying, every time I see my razor, I think of you, Weezy. Not too sure about Slava, but you have me second guessing. Yeah, man. So the Bootsy Collins underdog pick of the week this week was Slava Claus. But I also, the thing about the ass shaving of the week is I it's supposed to be my most confident pick, but it's hard to be confident about a lot of the fighters this week. Can you say that you're really confident on Pavlovich or Aspinall? I mean, if you're saying that you're confident on those guys, then it shows that you don't know much about fighting. Because if you're confident on Aspinall, it means that you're confident that Pavlovich isn't going to land something that could crush his head. And we all know that Sergey Pavlovich can knock anybody out on the planet if he lands one good shot, And the same thing with Pavlovich. You're like, oh, I'm sure he's going to knock his head off. Well, are you? What happens if the fight goes into the second round? What happens if Sergey Pavlovich gets taken down? So it's hard to be confident about that. It's hard to be confident about the Pereira Prochazka fight with Yuri on the long layoff. Is the shoulder injury completely healed? What happened there? So we've got a fight that could go either way, and Prochazka might wrestle. And if he does that, can he cause some problems for Pereira? We saw Blachowicz easily win the first round by getting a takedown and just riding out the first on top. It was so easy. So, there are a bunch of different ways that a lot of these fights can go. But in my opinion, if you're not taking down Slava 8 times and controlling him on the mat for 10 minutes, I don't see you winning the fight. And I haven't seen anything like that from Sadikov. I think Sadikov fancies himself a really good kickboxer, and he is. He is a really good kickboxer. He's in the UFC. He's winning fights at the UFC level. But this is Slava Borshev. He doesn't, even if he got 12 minutes of control time, Slava could land one big shot at the end of the fight and fold this dude like a lawn chair. So I figured, and plus I've been on such a win streak on the ass shaving of the week. I've gotten a little bit bored. So I wanted to take a plus money shot this time just so I could, challenge myself a little bit more, because picking favorites is a little bit too easy for me right now. So yeah, we're going with Slava, and I think the stylistic read here is that this guy's going to find something big and he's going to get a knockout. I'm picking second round. Christian Jenkins, my guy in the room, saying, "What's up, Unc? What you cooking up on Prize Picks this week?" All right, my friend. Here's what I'm doing on Prize Picks. I've got a 3-legger, significant strike the significant strike template. Shout out. We got the numbers here, and what we're looking at. We're going to start off with John Castaneda, 55.5 significant strikes. Castaneda's landed that many or more 2 of 5 times. Kong has allowed more than 55 or 56 or more significant strikes only 2 times in 12 UFC fights. So you add those numbers up, it's 4 out of 17. Only 23% of these guys combined offense and defense have went over 55.5 significant strikes. So that loves the over. Also, the benchmark, 55.5 significant strikes. I can go in the division, Christian, just to show you how cool your Uncle Weezy is. Right? I can go in here, and this is going to be the Castaneda fight. So 135 pounds. You see these numbers here, 55.5, and it says 33.78% of winners get over that number, 17.08% of losers get over that number, and 25, that means 25%, or 268 out of 1,054 bantamweight fights that have been scheduled for 3 rounds. There have been 526 of them since 2013. In those 526 fights, 25%, or 268 out of 1054 of those fighters have scored more than 55.5 significant strikes. So you already know, based on that you're up against it. So my little divisional expected value, where I create a probability that John Castaneda is going to get over 55.5 significant strikes, the probability that I'm computing there, Christian, 26.88%. Now, I'd like it to be closer to 55 or 60 if I'm betting the over there. So I love the under. John Castaneda lands 4.51 significant strikes per minute. Kyung only absorbs about 2.91. So the average is about, we're going to weight it. We just don't take 4.51 plus 2.91 and divide it by 2. We weight the significant strikes based on how many fights. So I'm getting a weighted average of 3.36 significant strikes landed per minute for John Castaneda. The Prize Picks total for this fight is 15 minutes. If we take that 3.36 and we multiply it by 15, we get a number around 45, 50. So that's still less. But the weighted average of these guys' fight time in the UFC is 11.82 minutes. So 3.36 times 11.82, I'm getting a prediction of 39.71 significant strikes for John Castaneda here. So that's 15.79 less than the total. It's all red here. It's all red for the overs. So when it's red, we like the unders. So Castaneda under 55.5 significant strikes. The next one, Josh Van over 60.5 significant strikes. I like that one a lot because Van is a very high level striker, or I mean, a very high volume striker, as is Borjas. Van, not much of a wrestler. These guys are going to stand in the pocket and they are going to bang. And Josh Van was landing 8 significant strikes per minute in the Zhalgas Zhumagulov fight. So at that pace, you only need about 7.5 to 8 minutes of fight time in order for Josh to get over 60.5 significant strikes. Now, if we look at that divisional expected value, we know we're up against some bad totals here. But when you watch Josh Van fight and when you look at the stylistic read for this fight, we always, when we're betting overs, we want to know that the fight's going to be taking place at distance striking range. Because if we look at the divisional benchmarks here, right? 4.05 for distance strikes landed per minute, right? But 2.03 for clinch and ground strikes landed per minute. So if we can predict that a fight is going to take place at distance striking range for the majority of the fight, we know that we're going to get closer to this 4.05 distance strikes landed per minute at the division more than this 2.03. So you look at this, fighter expectations, at 90% distance, because, well, actually, at 100% distance, it's predicting 115 significant strikes landed. And these are the fighter expectations here based on the amount of distance. And here are the divisional expectations. And we can see that these numbers above that are way higher. And it's because Josh Van is a very high volume striker. So we're doing under for Castaneda, the under 55.5 significant strikes. We're doing the over 60.5 significant strikes for Joshua Van. And then we're also going to do, Christian, the under 66.5 significant strikes for Lupe Godinez. Now, this fight, the fighter expectations that I have here, I've got 79 significant strikes landing for Lupe Godinez should this fight take place 100% at distance. 73 for 90% at distance. But the weighted average for these ladies' time at distance, 56.69%. In addition to that, Tabitha Ricci, her style is very elusive. She never really stops moving. And what I've noticed about Lupe is that she's a bit of a counter striker. She's always going to counter when her opponents are throwing at her. But if her opponents are moving and staying busy outside but not getting in that pocket, she will be lower volume. I could see Tabitha Ricci shooting for takedowns here. I could see Lupe Godinez shooting for takedowns here. And I could see that this 4.17 weighted average that we have for significant strikes landed per minute actually being a little bit less than that because of how Tabitha fights. So 66.5 significant strikes is the Prize Picks total. My prediction here is 53.07 for significant strikes. So I do like the under for this one. And my divisional expected value does tell us that 33.34% of the time, or 1/3 of women's strawweight fighters, get over that number with about a 63% win probability. So we're up against a pretty big hurdle there. And it's not like Lupe is like Josh Van, right? She doesn't stand on a napkin and just like unload massive volume. She's a little bit more of a counter striker and she will wrestle a lot. And Lupe Godinez is only landing 1.43 clinch and ground strikes landed per minute. And Ricci's only absorbing 1.68. So I see this one going under. So if we do those three here on Prize Picks, it would be Van more, Castaneda less, Lupe Godinez less. Could do 20 to win 100. We could do 100 to win 500. It depends on how big your balls are. Are you a big swinging dick or you got like the smaller unit size? Whatever it is, we don't unit shame here. We're just trying to make that money. We're trying to multiply it. And this one's a 5-to-1 shot. And the data likes it. The stylistic reads kind of match up, in my opinion, as well. My favorite of the three, I would say, is the Castaneda under 55.5. But that's what I got for you this week, Christian. Thank you for asking, my man. Okay, and we got DGen for life in the room saying, Interesting theory, Weezy. It kind of looked like Gilton was going for the arm triangle pretty hard, though. You make a good case, though. Yeah, look, and I made that case before the fight. The thought is that these lines are getting ridiculous. You know, they're getting blown out. They're getting sharper. But when you open something at minus 10,000, that is the bookie saying, fuck you. We don't want your action. Go ahead and parlay the shit out of it. We're getting out of the way. That was a term us traders. I used to work on the floor of the Chicago Stock Exchange. I was an equity specialist down there. And when you had a stock, see, as a specialist, your job was to create liquidity for the market. So whenever you at home, you know, like let's say you're going to go buy 100 shares of Amazon, you know, there's going to be somebody filling that order for you if you send it to a major exchange. And that person, you know, will, if you're buying stock, will sell it to you on the offer. And if you're selling stock, they will buy it from you on the bid. But part of the specialist's job is to create liquidity for the markets, to provide that market, and to kind of be the only seller there when nobody wants to sell, be the only buyer, or at least sell a little bit of stock. Because as a good specialist, if a stock's going up, you should be long that stock. You should be owning it so that you can sell it on the way up on the offer and make money off of your position and provide some liquidity for the market. And that's what bookies do for gamblers. You know, bookies are the guys that are, you know, when you're the specialist, you get to sell on the offer and you get to buy on the bid. And it's the same thing with the bookie. You're selling on the offer, you're buying on the bid, because there is a bid and an offer. That's why, you know, when fighter A is 60% to win the fight, that the odds on fighter B are not 40%. They're going to be more than that, because there is a VIG in the market. There is that spread. There's that extra cost to pay, the cost of doing business. And what we said when we were specialists and stocks were going up or stocks were going down, and if it were going up and we didn't want to sell, and if it were going down and we didn't want to buy, we said we were getting the fuck out of the way, right? And that's kind of dangerous, because then there isn't any liquidity in the market, and then the market makers decide that they don't want to take any risk. Well, when you start saying, all right, fight doesn't go to decision, minus 10,000, 99.01% implied probability, you create a market now where if the fight does go to decision, it's a massive implied probability. It's like something like 3%. The 3% implied probability is a massive plus money number for the gambler. You know, if you're hitting bets that have a 3% implied probability, you're getting paid, son. So when you get out of the way, now all of a sudden, you know, there's really no market there. And now the only market is, well, what if the fight goes to decision, you know? And that's the book trying to get people to bet on the side that they think will never happen. But now these fighters who don't make shit, they can actually look at those prices and say, holy shit, man, you know, I can have my buddy go put down 3 different bets at 3 different, you know, sports books at 18-1 and cash out huge. And all I got to do is steer the result in a direction where people don't think it will go. That's what happens when the bookies get out of the way. The bookies got out of the way, and Gilton Almeida got in the way. And he said, you know what? If you're going to pay me 18-1 to take this fight for the full 25, I'll take it the full 25. I know how I can do it. I can take this guy down whenever I want. I can lay on top of him. I can make it look like I'm going submissions, but the chokes will never quite get there. I can make it look like I'm throwing big, hard shots, but they're never going to quite land real crisp, you know? But I'll do just enough to stay on top. That's exactly what happened. And I'm not saying that it's for sure fixed or anything. I'm saying that the motivation, the payoff for changing the result a little bit, you're getting paid to do it now. And that winds up making the results less believable. My guy Lou bet you in the room. Jacques Tits or Phil Tits, and why in a contrast compare blue book answer. So Jacques Tits math. Phil Tits is an athlete. Who is Phil Tits? And I think it's Teats. I think it's Teats. Google. Phil Teats. German soccer player, Philip Teats. He's a handsome kid. You know, he's a good-looking kid. I don't know about the dyed blonde hair. But anyway, I'm going to say that Jacques Tits gave more gifts to the world. You know, will there be another mathematician like Jacques Tits? That's an open-ended answer. Will there be another football player with the talent and the quality of Philip Teats before we die? Probably 10,000 of them. So I'm comparing Jacques Tits to Phil Tits and saying that I am going with Jacques Tits as the person who's given more gifts. But in terms of, who's winning more money for people who bet on Bundesliga soccer, that's going to be Phil Tits. But that is the Tits comparison, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Lou Betya, for having the first ever segment, the Tits comparison, here on Uncle Weezy's Ask Weezy. We got Antonio Esparza saying, I know we all said that no way the Almeida-Lewis fight would go to decision, but then it did. Can you see one of the main co-main going to decision? I'll be truly dumbfounded if they do. So, of course, at this point, Antonio, I'm not going to say that there's no chance, right? But I don't see either of these getting out of the second round. I don't really see. I love the under 1.5 rounds for the Aspinall-Pavlovich fight, and I love the under 2.5 rounds for the Pereira-Prochazka fight. If there was one fight that I think would go the full 25, it would be Pereira-Prochazka. I don't see Sergey Pavlovich bringing even 2 rounds of cardio with that body of his. I mean, like, have you ever seen anybody built like that? That dude, I mean, he's got an 84-inch reach and he's all muscle. I mean, like I said on Just the Tip last night, if you've never seen this dude, just picture a refrigerator that's got a fucking Easter Island statue bolted to the top of it. That's what Sergey Pavlovich looks like. So I don't see him being able to go more than 10 minutes without like his heart exploding. And I don't see anybody being able to take more than 2 or 3 flush shots from this dude without dying. So that one, I mean, if one of these two were to go the full 25, I would say it would be Prochazka Pereira, because we've seen Pereira go into the 5th round before. We've seen Prochazka go into the 5th round before. And that Prochazka Teixeira fight was an instant classic. And I can't believe that was another fight that nobody thought was going to go the distance. We got my guy Swinger in the room. Oh God, Weezy, can you give a clean version of your flyer for after hours at the Harvard of the Midwest? So, all right, I guess we're doing a little story time with Uncle Weezy on today's Ask Weezy segment. So sit back, grab a beverage, and enjoy this very special segment of story time with Uncle Weezy. Your Uncle Weezy went to the Harvard of the Midwest, Northern Illinois University. One of my fraternity brothers, this man right here, Chris Kalanzis. And Chris and we were in the Sigma Chi house with 50, 60, 70 other dudes. And when we would have after hours parties, one of the fraternity council's rules is that you had to have tickets for the after hours. You would cut out these small pieces of paper, and you would go like dump them out at the dorms, and people had to have tickets in order to get into your after hours. And at some point, somebody took a picture of me when I was naked after doing Century Club, which is 100 shots of beer in 100 minutes. And we were getting raucous around the house. I was blackout drunk, took off all my clothes, and like did this pose, where I was like pulling a bow, like Alex Pereira, when he wins a fight. And somebody, I didn't know that somebody took a picture of this, but they took a picture of it. And one of the guys in our house had the very first version of Photoshop, and he was a graphic design major. So my friend Chris, he took the picture to this dude Bob, and it was of me naked, and he was like, "Look, dude, can we take this picture and elongate Weezy's dick so it's down past his knees, and that he's in this pose, naked, like shooting an imaginary bow and arrow with this fat cock down to his knees, and then we're gonna make that the after hours ticket for our party this Saturday." Now, I was nowhere around. I had no idea that they were doing this. So I go to class on Friday, the Friday of our party. And as I'm walking through the biggest hall, DuSable Hall at Northern Illinois, I start seeing pictures out. These pricks took this picture of me with a dick down past my knees, and they put it all over campus. And what they also did was, I was a Sigma Chi. We had a sorority house next door. The Alpha Phi's were right next to us at the at Northern Illinois University. These guys went into the Alpha Phi house and put my phone number on that picture, and they said, "This man needs a date to your dance." And they put this naked picture of me with a dick down past my knees with my phone number on it. And 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 I didn't know that they did any of it. This was a complete surprise to me. And I walk into, and like my eyes get this wide. I'm like, what the fuck is that me? Is what the fuck? And I was like, I took it down. I was like, holy shit. And like the people that are watching me take it down, they're like, is that you? In the picture? And I'm like, so I take it down, and then I look, and like they're all over the place. There's got to be about 30 of these things all over the place. They made it into the tickets for the after hours. They put it all over fucking campus. It was the most attended party that we ever had. And me and Chris and a couple other dudes, like they took a giant poster of it and they put it in the main party room, and they had me stand underneath the picture of me with the dick down past my knee, fully clothed, just kind of like sitting there chilling. And I got girls looking at me, looking up at the picture. And we had good times up there at the Harvard of the Midwest, Northern Illinois University, where I failed several classes while being an idiot partier at the Sigma Chi house. We had fun, but if it weren't for Swinger, my guy Chris, that picture wouldn't have got made, and I wouldn't have been known as the Big Daddy for the duration of my college career. I had developed quite the reputation as a result of that picture, and it wound up being a big thumbs up for my sex life on campus there. So I'd like to thank Bob Tate for being the guy that had that first version of Photoshop back in 1995, maybe. Who, like, this was like serious shit. Like, this, like people can go on their computer and do that now. Back then, you had to have a license. The program was super expensive, and only professionals had it. So really wild one there. So yeah, I guess we just had an impromptu story time with Uncle Weezy there. Appreciate you, Swinger. We got Daz Files in the room saying, "Oi!" And we got Zen Monkey in here. What is up, Zen Monkey? Good to see you in here. Mr. 25 saying, "Who would be your alternative ass shaving of the week if it wasn't Slava Claus?" For this week, boy, this is not a week where I'm confident in favorites. Like Jamal Emmers, I'm bet him to win by decision, but I don't think he's going to go out there and shave this dude's ass or finish Dennis Bazookia. Josh Van probably would have been my backup alternative ass shaving of the week. I'm high on this kid. I think he's got a really bright future, and he's still only 22 years old. I think Van's really good. I love what I see out of him in the pocket. He brings the fight, and I think he's going to bring a very exciting fight style. Hokong and Castaneda, I'm not confident in who wins that fight. I'm not confident in who wins Gordon Madsen. I'm confident that Vyacheslav beats Sadikov. I think the plus money on Vyacheslav is a good thing. Rombeski versus Roberts. I think Rombeski gets a win. He probably finishes Roberts because of the short notice, but he's minus 650. You don't need me to put him down as the ass shaving of the week. Ricci Godinez is close. Urseg Costa is close. I think Sabatini Lopez could be very close. Frivola Saint Denis, I think somebody probably gets served. I just don't know who. And then Pavlovich Aspinall and Prochazka Pereira, I'm not confident in those fights. Those fights could easily, there's blatant paths to victory for all four guys there. And none of them would be surprising at the end of the day. So I went with Vyacheslav to give you guys one of my most confident 50-50 picks of the week, and gave you that as the dog pick of the week too. So that's where I'm going, man. We got Terry Mizzo is in the room saying, "Oi, let's go, Weezy." I'm actually excited for this card. It's a great, great card. So I am fired up for it as well. We got Real Fight Picks in the room saying Castaneda going under 1.5 takedowns. Looks pretty sexy to me. Yeah, because I think 70% is Ho Kong's defense. Yeah, 9 of 30. So Ho Kong's been taken down 9 times in 12 UFC fights. Castaneda has 6 takedowns in 5 UFC fights. So is it really under 1.5? Yeah, I like under 1.5. I like under 1.5 for Steve Urseg. Brady was talking about that on the DFS show today, that he liked the Urseg under 1.5 takedowns. I think that's a good look as well. Yeah, Castaneda under 1.5 takedowns. That's a pretty good number. And we can also look here, just so you have an idea of what you're up against, right? So this is the 135-pound division. This is 1.5 takedowns. So 300 out of 1,054 fighters have gotten over 1.5 takedowns, so it's only 28.46%. Most fighters get 0 takedowns, and then less fighters than that, but more than 2 get 1, more than 3 get 2. So the frequency of getting more and more and more goes down as you go up, but yeah, the winners get that number 37.76% of the time. The losers 19.17% of the time. So yeah, 300 out of 1,054 fighters have crested that number. That's a big number to be up against, especially when we saw that Castaneda's gotten 6 and Ho Kong is allowed 9 in. So that's 15 total takedowns in 17 total fights. 5 for Castaneda, 17, 12 for Ho Kong. So we add that up, that's 17. So I like that under 1.5 takedowns as well. I wish I didn't like the Castaneda under 55.5 significant strikes so much, because I'd like that one as well. Terry Mizzo saying, "I know it's hack, but Josh in a van down by the river." One of the classic motivational speakers of our time. Rest in peace, Chris Farley. I've also done a story time with Uncle Weezy with Chris Farley before, if you haven't heard that one. Lou Betch is saying, "From what I've heard, you're using your paper not for writing, but for rolling doobies." That is such an 80s thing to say. Love it. We got a short round is in the room saying, "What's up, Uncle Weezy? Do you think Tabitha's movement will be too much for Loopy?" So I think it's going to be a problem, because you watch her, she's like a little flea in there. She's like a little mosquito. She's just bouncing back and forth, like a Mexican jumping bean, but she's not Mexican, so I think it's going to be a problem literally for everybody that she faces, because what Tabitha has kind of figured out is, she doesn't really have power at this level, so she's never knocked anybody down. I don't think Tabitha has any career knockouts to her record, but I could be wrong about that. Let me look. Why should I make a guess when I have the numbers right in front of me? So Tabitha Ricci does have 1 win by knockout in her career. And she has been knocked out once. It was by Manon Fiorot on short notice up a weight class. But Tabitha, because she moves so much, she can frustrate her opponents to kind of like maybe try to walk her down. And when you try to rush into the pocket against her, that's when she ducks under your punches and gets in on a double leg and takes you down. So I think Ricci's very live here. I think her fight style is going to be difficult for Lupi to deal with. And we've seen Lupi kind of not exactly know when to wrestle. It's kind of weird. Like she's such a good wrestler, but it's an open-ended question of whether she's even going to do it. I mean, like she wrestled not at all versus Ducote, Calvillo, and Hill. But you bookend those fights, the Carnelossi fight and the Reed fight, you see her just absolutely going out there and dominating with her wrestling and then forgetting that she knows how to do it in other fights. So, yeah, I think Ricci's movement is going to be a problem for Godinez, and I think it's a 50-50 fight. I think Tabitha Ricci at plus 145 is a pretty good bet. Lupi by however she wants, says my guy Chronic Combat Conversations. We've got Tone Miggins saying, let's go, Weezy. Lou is having too much fun. He's always having too much fun, dude. We got Lou Betcha saying my neighbor has a 3% chance of letting me go of his toe. Letting go of his toe. Yeah, I mean, exactly. 3% chance. I mean, it's like that's like it just opens the door to temptation, So it's I don't know, man. I'm blown away by how I nailed that. I absolutely nailed that last week. If you haven't seen that clip yet, check me out on Twitter and go play that clip. It was so prophetic. I can't believe it actually worked out that way. Weezy, this answer for the Tits metric ruled. Cool. Also has plus 225 anytime to score, and you can parlay him with McKenzie for the more tits parlay. That's why Lou Betch is one of the most followed cappers out there on Twitter, ladies and gentlemen. You only get this kind of analysis from our guy Lou, without question. Let's see here. We got Michael Panza in the room saying, I lost money on NIU last night in college football. Let me tell you, Michael, when I went to the NIU between the years of 1992 and 1997, I was on a 5.5-year plan. There was a 2-year stretch where we didn't win one game. We went 0-9 and 0-10 or whatever it was. No wins for 2 straight years while I was there. And like, I remember when I was like a senior, seeing like a magazine that had the top 108 Division I college football programs. Northern Illinois was listed 108 out of 108, and the only sentence describing their program was call Dr. Kevorkian. So yeah, NIU was not a team that you really wanted to bet on ever. But they have really pulled it together. And ever since I left, the football teams have gotten a lot better recently. And they are worth betting on evidently at some points these days. But yeah, evidently they did not get the job done last night, but that's the thing. You can't expect them to be a great football and have one of the best academic programs in the entire country. So it is what it is. Chad King saying, like it up. We got Golden Octagon saying, oi, chances of this being the y'all must have forgot spot for Andrade, like Lewis versus Pazal. Yeah, this could absolutely be the y'all must have forgot spot because stylistically, if Jessica Andrade comes in and stuffs the takedowns and wins the minutes on the feet, we shouldn't be that surprised, should we? I mean, Mackenzie Dern takedown accuracy is terrible, and Jessica Andrade hits really hard for his straw weight. So why not stopping takedowns that when they're not high percentage from Dern either anyway? And then you could also just say, all right, well, maybe she is the better striker. We know that as well. So this could absolutely be a y'all must have forgot spot for Jessica Andrade. It's just, you have to be sure that she's not mentally checked out, man. We got DGen for life saying epic story time. I'm glad you liked it, man. My guy Swinger, he can bring up these things from college and it just reminds me and be like, oh, wow, that's a story that people would like. We got Thomas Kane saying Pink Floyd or Led Zeppelin. That's a good question, man. My favorite Led Zeppelin song is the last song on Led Zeppelin 1, How Many More Times. Pink Floyd, great band. I really enjoyed their music. I mean, I think I like Pink Floyd's catalog more, but I think Led Zeppelin's moments as a band were better. Like when they peaked, they were better than Pink Floyd. But and John Bonham, incredible drummer, and I love drummers. So yeah, I would say Pink Floyd for the overall catalog and Led Zeppelin for the moments. We're gonna say Dern could shave Andrade's ass. Yeah, dude, that she absolutely could. I mean, she looked phenomenal versus Angie Hill. And Antonio Esparza, do we know what truly happened to Jiri's shoulder? Evidently, it was one of the worst injuries Dana has ever seen. Are you concerned Jiri might still be hurt? Yeah, I'm concerned because it's a long layoff too. It's not just the shoulder injury; it's a year and a half layoff. You know, and Pereira's had like 2 title fights since then, and 5 fights since this guy's last fought. So yeah, man, I think there's a lot of reasons to be concerned for Jerry here. And yeah, I mean, I heard Pepe Sylvia uh the Blunt podcast with Just Win Baby, and he was saying that Pepe thinks, he doesn't have any evidence of it or anything like that, but he thinks it could have been a USADA suspension, and it could have been like, hey, you know, because he's the champ, it looks bad if the champ's using performance enhancers, so maybe we'll just say he got hurt, you know, and he has to take a year and a half off when it's really just a suspension. You know, and that's a lot what people thought about Michael Jordan back in the day when he left the sport to go play baseball in the minor leagues. People were like, there's something else going on here. This doesn't make sense, you know? So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons to be concerned about Jiri. One of the biggest reasons to be concerned about Jiri is that he blocks punches with his face against a guy who can punt your head into the cheap seats. So we're going to see. We got UTF666 saying, hey, little bro, what's up, big bro? Let me know if you have any questions about this card. We got Martinez Michael in the room saying, I think Aspinall and Jiri both get their asses shaved clean. Yeah, I'm picking Aspinall to win, and I'm picking Pereira to win. So I'm with you on one of those, but whoever wins those fights is probably going to win in violent fashion because that's how they always win. So yeah, those are going to be ass-shaving candidates for sure. We got Antonio Esparza saying thoughts on the Lopez Sabatini over under 2.5 rounds, over plus 120, under minus 154. All right. So I've got the under 2.5 at minus 170 and plus 140. So the over 2.5 was plus 170 earlier in the week, and I almost hit it. But I was terrified about Lopez because Lopez is such a good finisher. I'll put it this way. The data likes the over because it's plus money, because the analytics, you know, these guys have had 8 fights. 4 of them have went over 2.5 rounds in the UFC. So that's 50%. And at plus 140, you're only paying 41.67% on the line. And we also know that 61% of featherweight fights go over 2.5 rounds. I would lean the over for this one, but I'd much rather get plus 140 for it, because at plus 120, I think it's kind of like a no bet. But at plus 140, I like it. And I would just lean the overs there just because it's a featherweight fight. Featherweight fights finish at a much lower rate than bantamweight fights and lightweight fights for some reason. And so I always like the sneaky overs in featherweight fights, and I think that could be a sneaky over. Teratia Paku saying, sure, uncle. I really like the Aspinall money line. I do too. I think his speed, footwork, and movement can avoid the big shots. If he can get an entry and get the fight on the mat, he should make it look easy. And I agree, man. This is he's got more ways to win, Teratia. He's got more ways to win, period. He should have the better conditioning, in my opinion. He's faster. He's the better athlete. He's taller. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and he's proven that he's very dangerous on the ground. But you know, can he avoid the big shot? Because with Sergey, That guy's got like canned hams for fists, and if he lands once, it's trouble. And if you shoot in sloppy, he loves to throw those uppercuts, and he can catch you with that. So, yeah, I like Aspinall to win this fight. I think he has more ways to win it. I just can't be confident about it because of the power that Sergey brings. We got Cocaine in the room saying, yapping. What is up, Cocaine? Always a nice upper for the end of the day. And we got Antonio Desparza in the room saying, do you know why the fight will go the distance is plus 172 in the Dern fight? Dern's last 4 of 5 fights went to decision. It's because Mackenzie Dern is the favorite, and she's going to win this fight about 2/3 of the time, according to the implied probability of the money line. And because Jessica Andrade has been finished in 80% of her losses, and there's 10 of them. So 8 times out of 10 in the UFC, Jessica Andrade has been finished, and Jessica Andrade is a finisher in her own right. So yeah, you're going to see a fatter plus money number than you usually see for women's fights, but it's because both women are finishers and because Jessica has proven not to be durable. And we got the Cuban Assassin is in the room saying Andrade is damaged goods, and by the looks of her OnlyFans, that's not going to work out either. Winslow, MSG legend, yes, Kim Winslow hopefully will be back in the house for this card. It's a big card, so you got to bring out the big guns. And I think Kim Winslow should be one of the referees here on this card. And maybe it's time to bring back Vyacheslav Kisiev. We can forgive him now, and he'll bring us death. He'll bring us excitement. So maybe it's time to bring back, like we should have a great idea for a UFC event would be to have a UFC event where it's all the worst referees in UFC history. We could bring back Steve Mazzagatti. We could bring back Mario Yamasaki. We could let Dan Movaheady get in there. And then we could have Kim Winslow and Vyacheslav Kisiev in there. And we could just have a complete shit show. But you'd tune in. Wouldn't you tune in if you got to see Mario Yamasaki do that one more time and then let somebody die in the cage? I mean, I think it's a good idea. I think we should absolutely go for it. But yeah, Andrade, that's the thing. It's like this could be the all must have forgot moment, or it could be the, yeah, that's now 4 in a row. And it really does look like Jessica doesn't give a shit and she's showing up for checks. So we're going to find out on Saturday, Cuban Assassin. And we got Antonio Esparza saying, am I crazy to like Madsen in the Gordon fight? No, you're not, because this is a fight that, according to the bookies, is going to go to decision 75% of the time. Jared Gordon is undefeated in decisions in his career. He's listed at 10-1, but that one loss came to Paddy Pimblett. He won all 3 rounds of that fight. That was just fixed by the judges. So Gordon is a great minute winner. But guess what? Like, he doesn't put stamps on fights. That's why he lost that Pimblett fight, other than the bags of money that the judges got paid to call that one for Pimblett. But I think that Madsen can keep this close, and I think that the line is probably where it should be. I think Gordon's the better fighter. I think he's probably the more likely guy to win minutes in the grappling exchanges. He's the higher volume striker. He's definitely the more defensively minded striker as well. But he's chinny, and he can be taken down and held down. And those are things that Mark Madsen can take advantage of. So I think there are paths for Mark Madsen here. We'll see. I thought about getting to his money line at plus 150, but what I did instead was I went for the finish only prop, which opened at plus 170, because I do think that Madsen has most of the finishing equity in this fight. And then Antonio says, one last question. If you had $100 to spend on this card, what's your favorite plays to make profit? I would bet Vyacheslav Borshev's money line and his KO prop. I would bet, well, I'll just show you guys my track bets so far. I've got the over 1.5 rounds in Frivola Saint Denis. That's going to be an absolute sweat. I love this parlay. The over 2.5 rounds in the Emmers Bazookier fight, and then the under 1.5 rounds in the Aspinall Pavlovich fight. That comes out to plus 115. I think that's a great bet. Madsen scorecards, no action. I like Jamal Emmers by decision. I bet the fight doesn't go to decision for Kong versus Castaneda because they're both very dangerous, in my opinion. It's a big plus money number of plus 180. And then I also 3.5 unit bet on Prochazka Pereira under 2.5 rounds at minus 175. So I'd take some of that. I'd put it on. I'd parlay up the over 2.5 for Bazookier versus Emmers and the under 1.5 for Aspinall versus Pavlovich. I'd take a third of it and I'd put it on Vyacheslav Borshev's money line, and I'd take a third of it and I'd put it on Prochazka Pereira under 2.5 rounds. We got Tabithas back who really does he values his brain cells because he says, I'm not signing the contract of Mazzagotti's referee, man. And we got Chad King is in the room and he's saying, Weezy King, Bernie Gore sends his regard. I don't know what you're trying to get me to say there. It's like probably something that makes me look like an idiot if I say it out live. But, anyway, they send my regards right back to that individual. We got Electric Doll saying, is Castaneda minus 150 and Kong plus 120 justified? Kong has way more UFC experience and battle minutes. Yeah, he does. Kong's wins aren't great, but the last 2 wins were good. I like the Canonas win. I like the Bakary win. And Castaneda, I think, is a little bit underrated. And I think he's a very good fighter. I think the reason he's the favorite here is because sharp bettors know that Castaneda brings a complete skill set to the cage and that he can win moments, he can win minutes. And that head kick of his is pretty spectacular. And he throws it a lot and it lands a lot. And I think that he's even given really good, like even in the Santos loss, it was a great performance. And if Santos wasn't crazy durable, he would have won that fight. So, yeah, I mean, I see a lot of sharp guys on Kong at plus 120, and I'm picking John Castaneda to win this fight by decision, and I have fight to not go to decision at plus 180 for 1 unit. But yeah, I get the Kong plus 120 love. I love betting the plus money sides, especially when I think they got more than a 50% chance to win. So if your read is that Kong gets that win, I think plus 120 is a good look. And Antonio saying, thanks for your time and knowledge, Unc. We all appreciate it. Stay safe, bro. I appreciate all you guys for watching. Thanks for hanging out tonight. 39 of you still hanging out in here. Hit that thumbs up. Hit that subscribe. Please consider joining the Patreon where you get access to these stats, like the matchup stats, like the prop template. Coming soon, we're going to have access to these significant strike templates and also takedown templates and fantasy score templates for Underdog and Prize Picks. These are some great new markets to bet on MMA. So I'm going to be providing content for you guys going forward that can help us get into these new markets, which are going to take a while to get sharper. And then maybe we can find an edge in these markets that isn't really existing right now in the betting market. So I appreciate you guys' time and attention. Thank you for hanging out. I will be back on Friday for the Greasy 4-leg parlay. And then on Saturday, you can check me out on Pub Sports Radio for the watch along with Boston Nick and the boys. Thank you so much for watching. Let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC 295. And I will see you guys on Friday. Good night.